Hey, what's up? Welcome to Relatively Sane. Hope everyone's doing well. I decided that I'm going to do this intro in different characters because I don't feel like being myself. So I'm going to call myself Chad. My name is Chad, and I'm white. I'm from Connecticut, nice big house, 7 cleaning ladies, and a drunk father. And I just want to say that I hope everyone's well, and I love steak and potatoes.
Hi, how's everyone doing? My name is Chloe, and I'm just really freaked out about what's going on in the world because people are crazy, and it's just I just feel Black Lives Matter, and even though I don't really feel passionate about it, I'm just pretending I do so that people like me and I have more friends, because I don't even know what it means to say Black Lives Matter. I just want to fit in, and I don't even know, I don't know what's going on.
Hello, everyone. This is Sylvia. I had a wonderful meal today at the diner. They had an early bird special. I got a filet of sole, dry, with a little bit of lemon and herbs, and a side of white rice and green beans, and I even got a free vegetable soup. It had the letters in it, the alphabet letters, and it spelled out Jew, which I don't know if that was a compliment or an insult. I don't know if the letters just moved together in that word or if it was purposely put there. But it was such a cheap meal, I don't even care. Who cares anymore? I need to get some tapioca pudding. Hold on, Stanley?
All right, I've lost my mind, everyone, but in a good way. We have to lose our minds in a good way. You have to laugh and be silly. Oh, God, what is happening in this world? You know what I've been doing? I've been putting on a mask and dancing around very religious Arab men. I've been dancing and singing just to make them uncomfortable. Okay, I'm going to end on that. You guys are amazing. Follow me on social media at Jessie Kirson on Instagram, at Jessica Kirson on Twitter, jessicakirson.com. I have my Patreon. You can go on Patreon, spend $5 a month. You can spend $8 a month. You can spend $468 a month or $7,962 a month, whatever you want to do to support me, because this podcast is free. So oh God, just become a Patreon member. All right, enough of that. I love you all. Enjoy the podcast.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Relatively Sane. I am here with one of my favorite people for so long that I am so happy to have on as a guest, Liz Miele. Hi, Liz.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
I'm so glad. Now, some people just listen to this and some people watch it on YouTube, but I want to say you look really happy and together right now. Do you feel that way?
I showered, which doesn't happen very often.
Okay, because I don't do that. Right.
I showered.
Yeah.
And then even my roommate said something, because I'm wearing kind of a maxi dress. I'm wearing a long dress, and then I have this silly, it has dinosaurs on it. I have this silly kind of loose top. And he's like, are you going to prom or something? He's like, what is going on? And I was like, it felt like it was time to shower. We're celebrating showering.
I know. Well, that's all we're doing. I mean, how long did you just stay? I go through days of being in my pajama, my sweatpants and t-shirt.
Oh yeah, no, because to me, I just sleep in shorts and a ripped t-shirt, and the most I'm leaving my house is to go get groceries. I feel like we've become so comfortable with our neighborhood that I don't care that I'm pretty much walking around in my PJs everywhere. You know what I mean? It's just shorts
Me
and a t-shirt.
too.
But I feel like I don't smell, and even if I do smell, I'm not in my roommate's. We have a pretty decent sized apartment that I don't.
Yeah.
I'm fine with my smell.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing anybody.
You don't smell. You're not someone who smells. I don't smell either. but I do look like I smell when I go out. I look homeless.
I mean, that's how this is the most effort I put into my hair. I look like I just got hit by a truck and I'm trying to get my memory back, and people are a little unsure if I'm safe to talk to. That's what I normally look like. This is like a little bit of an effort.
Hilarious. I know. I go out and then I'll look down and be like, I have rips all over my shirt. I have a stain. I don't know what is going. I mean, it just.
I did a park show last week. And like a show in a park. You know how we're like borderline homeless people now.
I performed at a dumpster last Tuesday, and it was really
how
exciting.
Was the pay?
I got 4 cans and a chicken bone.
Oh, congrats! You could feed a family. But I had like a legit stain on my shirt that I had to decide, did I get that today or have I had it for days? And I was going through what I've ate to be like, have I been walking around with the stain for days? Like, and I was going to wear it out. And then I had to be like, no, just change your shirt, Liz. Like, I have clothes, but I haven't done laundry in so long because I'm living off 3 pairs of clothes that are pretty much the same type of shorts and t-shirt.
Because we don't go out a lot. So if you do, why don't you wear the same thing all the time that's comfortable?
And you know what? It's so funny. Not that there's a lot of rules and how we're supposed to look on stage, but I think we all have our own individual rules of what we think is appropriate.
Yeah.
Like, I don't really wear a lot of dresses on stage. It has to be like really hot for me to like wear something that feels like going out. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, I'm a jeans and t-shirt person.
Yeah.
And even like nice gigs, I'm like, I just put a blazer over my t-shirt. Like I really am like, but I have these rules. And then yesterday I did a show in the park. It was a 45-minute walk or a 20-minute run. And I was like, people are wearing shorts and like all these little things that were like little baby rules. I was like, I'm running to my gig and I'm looking homeless. I don't care
That's
that
good,
I look like
Liz.
I loved it, actually. It was kind of cool to run. You know, I had 20 minutes to kind of like chill, wait for the other comics. And then I did my set and then I kind of like walked home. And I was like, I feel like I'm utilizing my time well. You know, Al Lubell, when I first started, Al Lubell used to bike to Ha when I was like working at Ha almost every day. And he was very sweaty. I'm going to be honest. He was a very sweaty man.
He's a lot of hair too.
Yeah, and
he's
I was
a very
just
funny
like,
comic for people
so
that don't.
funny, so funny and so kind. But there was a part of me that's like, at what level of respect do I have to be at to just kind of show up in the middle of my workout? And I think I did it. Like, I think I'm there. Like, I thought of Al Lubell. I was like, I'm at Al Lubell status where I'm like, I don't care.
That's good. Yeah, I feel like I'm showing up for shows now in the middle of a mental breakdown, which is actually, I'm proud of myself that I'm able to get out and even make people laugh while I'm losing my mind.
But don't you feel like this is the first time, like, as somebody that's like dealt with depression and all these kind of like, I've felt my worst and gone on stage, I feel like this is the most I've related to the audience.
Yes.
We're all going through the same thing.
Yes.
Like, if we don't get a big thing that was going to financially save us, or there's some kind of rejection or whatever, even if it's just, like I said, depression, it feels like you're going through it by yourself. But everybody has some form of anxiety and depression and just what's the pointness that's going on right now.
Most people,
like,
Yep.
It feels like, I feel like I relate to my community more than I ever have. I feel like I relate to like my actual community, my neighbors, you know, New Yorkers, the US, and then of course, even the world that's gone through this. I mean, we've done the shittiest job, but like everyone has kind of gone through some version of this.
Yeah. You just said that, like, our country, like, do you feel united with the country right now? Or do you feel like you're united with some people because of the way you think?
It's weird. I think it's hard I think we're all frustrated with people that are anti-mask or having parties that just are like, I had a booker who was trying to put together like a drive-in show for me. And he was like, he's like, my son's an idiot. My son decided to go to Nashville. This was a couple of weeks ago, go to Nashville and hang out with his friends. So he flies to Nashville. He's bar hopping. Comes back, he has COVID. He goes, what an idiot. I go, dude, he's not an idiot. He's an asshole. He's an asshole.
Yeah, he's right.
Because he didn't just get COVID. He endangered the staff on the flight. He endangered anybody that was working at that bar, anybody that's around that bar. Yes, they decided to go to that bar.
It's totally true. And I feel like that because I have kids, I have a mom, I have a stepmother. I mean, I worry about the elder people in my family, about everybody.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I've toured a couple of Asian countries the last year or so, and I'm very used to seeing people wearing masks. And we even have a lot of tourists in New York City, so we've seen kind of Asian tourists wearing masks. And I was, I became aware of it when I was in Japan, that they're doing it for other people. Like I might be sick, I'm doing this for other people. But I was watching online an Asian American talking about the fact that certain Asian communities, they're raised to believe that they're a unit and that you do stuff for the better of other people. And what people like about Americans is that we're very individualistic and we make this beautiful art and we do what we want and, fuck the man. But then when we need to be a community, you still have people going, fuck the man. And you're like, no, the man's trying to keep you safe. Yeah. The man's trying to keep us all safe. Right. And the fact that I'm thinking about your grandma and you're not thinking about your grandma is heartbreaking.
I know. I totally agree with you. I was just thinking while you were talking about traveling to Asia, out of everyone I've had on this podcast, I think of all the women I've had, which I've had some, I wish, there's so many more I want to get on the show, but you've traveled by yourself, I think, the most out of anyone I've talked to. Like out of the country. Like you have been to so many, like many more places than I have. Yeah. What made you want to do that? Like travel outside? Because I think that you're so well-rounded in your stand-up because of that. Because you've done, like, performing in other countries has helped me a lot as a comic, be a stronger one. So what made you, do you just love to travel? How did you?
It's funny. It was never, I didn't grow up traveling. We went to Florida for vacation every year. Even into college, my dad's like, you want to go to Florida? I was like, I've been there. I don't want to go to Florida, Dad. Yeah. Like, I don't want to go to Florida. So mine was like kind of selfish in a way where the first club that really booked me a lot was Caroline's. And it's so touristy that I'm a very young comic. And I would get off stage and it was always English people coming up to me being like, you're so funny. And I was like, oh, but nobody feels that way. Maybe I was born in the wrong country because people here don't seem to find me funny. But very early in my career, it was English people that would say, you're so funny.
Interesting, right.
So it kind of put something in my head, I should go to London. So I remember maybe like 7 years in talking to like Gina Brion or talking to, there's a couple like, I can't think of some of the other comics, but there was like 3 or 4 comics that I had known that had gone over there. And I was like, oh, how did you get over? And they told me about like a booker and visas and it was all this stuff and it was just too much for me. And they all said the same thing, which is you're probably going to either lose money or you're going to break even. And I was just not at a place. I was still trying to be a full-time comic. I wasn't at a place to take any risks, but it was always like in the back of my head, I was like, how do I get overseas? How do I get overseas? So then I think the first time I felt confident to kind of spend a little money on myself was many years later. My friend from college, he was from Spain. He was from Madrid. He went back home. He was an artist. He had an exhibit. And I was like, I'm going to go visit Ignacio and I'm going to see if I can get a show out there. So it was already like kind of a vacation and going to see my friend. So I ended up doing an English speaking show in Madrid. It was awesome. Oh, so wow. Even though it was one show and I'm mostly a tourist, I was like, oh, that's cool. It can be done. Okay. So then next was, do you remember Maria Shahada?
Yes. Yep.
So Maria's a very close friend of mine. She, she was in New York for years, LA for years, and now she's actually lives in London. But she was doing a military tour where she was like all over Europe. And she was like, hey, my military tour ends this day. I have a friend that lives in London. I'm going to go to London for a week. I know you want to go there. Do you want to see if you can find a couch to sleep on? So we'll both go out there and we'll try to do gigs. And it was just enough motivation that I was like, all right, I'll figure out the frequent flyer. I like did all the math. I was like, these frequent flyer miles will cover that. I'll sleep on my friend's couch that just moved there like 2 months ago. Talk about like somebody just moved and I was like, can I be a part of your couch? And then anybody I had ever met, I wasn't even trying to make money. I was like, I just want to get up in London and just feel it out. And everybody said like, you're not going to make money. They need to see that you can do well. So I was like, I'm just going to do as many shows as possible. So for a week I did maybe like 10 shows. Yeah. Anything I could do, whether it was an open mic.
I did the same thing there. It was unbelievable.
Yeah. And like, certain places I would make maybe 75 pounds, like little stuff like that. And I was able to actually kind of break even, but we were able to get a booker. It's now a defunct club. It was called Jongleurs, but they were a chain and they came out to see me and Maria and they liked us. So we ended up getting, I think 6 months later, I got 3 weekends in a row.
That's awesome.
And then, or it wasn't even that. We got 2 weekends in a row and then a week off and then another weekend. But I didn't want to say no to the weekend. So then again, I went back to my resources and I was like, does anybody have any European, any kind of contacts? And I turned this 3 weekends in England into a month and a half in like 7 countries.
Wow.
And like me and Maria got an Airbnb. I probably slept in that Airbnb 3 times because I ended up doing so many gigs. They gave me hotels and stuff, and it just kind of started a chain reaction of I can do this on my own. I can do it without a manager and agent.
Mm-hmm.
I can make money. This is also when like the exchange rate for England specifically was like 1.6. So if I made £100, I came home with $160.
Yeah.
But then they were also paying double what US was paying. And I was exhausted. I was like, it was the most tired and scared I've ever been because I've never internationally traveled this much.
Yeah, it's scary. I've done it. It's really scary to be by yourself.
I have a joke. It's a 7-minute story joke from a previous album about getting turned away at trying to go to Finland for a festival. It was actually, I think that was the end. It was either that tour or another tour. I think it was another tour, but like I was supposed to go to Finland. I show up and they go, you can't go. And I go, why? And they go, your passport expires in less than 3 months.
Oh gosh.
And I'm just like, why does that matter? I'm going for 3 days. And they were like, it's a rule. And I was like, come on. And so then they were like, you'd have to get another passport. So I missed my flight. I ran to the US Embassy in London, got an emergency passport, got another flight. And then they tried to turn me away again and say that they don't accept emergency passports. And I'm just like, first of all, what are these rules? Like, what? Like,
wait till now after all this shit.
Oh yeah, but like that's something where like it's online and people have commented. And they're just like, you should have known that. I go, that's a pretty specific rule just to about 4 or 5 countries I've now learned, mostly in Scandinavia.
Right.
Why wouldn't that be why wouldn't you say that to somebody? So then now I went to when I did my Asia tour last year, I did 4 Asian countries, and then I went to Australia for a month.
Amazing.
And what's crazy about it is I'm looking at my passport, and I only had like 3 pages. So I had another 6 years on the passport, but I only had 3 pages. So now I'm like, I've learned so much about the system that I was like, how many pages do I need to get into because they need to stamp it and there needs to be room. And if there's not room on their passport, they can turn you away. And I don't want to get turned away in Australia when I'm supposed to tour there for a month. So then I was like crazy. I had to like expedite and like, so I have all these crazy stories because enough bad things have happened touring. Like I've been turned away at the border going from Belgium back to London. Like all this crazy stuff that like I did a tour in Pakistan, I think 2 years ago. And the booker is amazing. He's, I really was one of my favorite tours that I've done. And I got super sick with food poisoning. So it shows you how much it was like.
Oh boy.
It was so much paperwork. And he like did everything. And so you had to go to the Pakistan embassy and like you had your affidavit and we had all this stuff. You have to drop everything off. Then they look at it and then you have to go in for an interview. And so a week goes by. I come in for the interview and they go, okay, you don't have your affidavit. And I go, oh no, it's in there. And they're like, no, it's not there. And I go, it is. And they're like, it isn't. And I go, can you bring my paperwork? Because it is. So they bring my paperwork. It's someone else's passport.
Oh my.
It says like Mary Elizabeth. She's like a 45-year-old woman that looks nothing like me. And I go, that's not me. And they go, it is. And I go, it isn't.
It is.
Like, what are we doing here? I was like, this is scary. You have my passport and you're now telling me you lost it.
And now you're telling me I'm someone else.
Yeah. I was like, this needs to be, I went from like, hey, what are we doing here? To like, hey, this is fucked up and I'm scared now. And so they go back, they leave me for a half hour, they come out, and I think they were so embarrassed that they confused me that they didn't even interview me. They're like, you're approved. I was like, that's
Perfect.
Also scary. Everything about this is scary, Pakistan.
Where did you grow up? Like where? I don't even know that, I don't think.
Jersey. I met you.
Where in Jersey?
I met you when I was 16 years old.
Oh, that's so, when people say that to me, I can't even.
But this is the thing is like, I have always credited you to somebody that was encouraging, that somebody that made me feel like I could do this.
Yeah.
And somebody that was always trying to either emotionally open doors for me or like physically open doors. Like you were one, like I was doing your bringer shows at Gotham, and you were like, you're good, you can do guest spots. Like, where we know this business enough where people can make money off you, people can kind of pigeonhole you, and you just saw me as a budding comic.
You
and
are.
You were like,
I mean, you were, and you work your ass off. So I always respected you because you work so hard. I mean, you really have put so much time and effort. Someone can say, oh, I've been doing it 10 years, 15 years, 6 years, 28 years. It doesn't matter if it depends, you know, to me, how hard they work at it, because you can do it once every 6 months and say you've been doing it 25 years, but you've always been such a hard worker. I mean, what made you want to get into stand-up in the first place?
I loved it. It
You
was
did?
like
Were you a fan of stand-up? Like, were you a fan of comics? I wasn't. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
What? So that makes me even curious how you got into it, because I was
more
obsessed.
Saturday Night Live sketches. You know,
that makes sense.
Carol Burnett show, that kind of stuff. I loved.
So was it just that stand-up was the easiest way to get into that on your? Because a stand-up to me is like, I think it's so much harder to get into sketch or improv because there's like all these barriers. But stand-up, you can do an open mic. Not right now, but like in normal circumstances, you can get up tomorrow.
Yeah, I was clueless. I had no interest. It was because of my grandmother. It literally was because she told me to do it. I would have never done it if she didn't say that.
And did you just have a good first experience?
I was sitting with my family and she said, you need to be a comedian. You need to be, I swear. And I was like, what? She goes, you need to be a comedian. Every time you're around people, they're laughing. You need to do that. And I looked in the back of Village Voice and there was a class. And I just took it and that was it.
How old were you when you started?
29.
Okay.
You were young. How old were you?
16.
That's crazy, Liz. I don't know the story. What happened? Just tell me what did your parents say?
It's funny. I like broke the news. I like almost came out as a comedian to my parents because like I was supposed to be the veterinarian. So my parents are both vets and I was the cat lover. And it was just kind of like, it was kind of weirdly, I know it sounds weird because there's 5 of us, but like I was the one that was going to get the practice my parents had built from the scratch.
Oh, I don't know any of this. So this is so interesting to me.
Yeah. So my parents were veterinarians. They started an animal hospital. None of the other kids, like we all are animal lovers, but nobody was obsessed with animals the way I was. And when you're a kid, when you're like 9, 10, 11, you're like, I'm going to be a veterinarian. And then most people, if their parents are that, you probably become that. But like, I don't know. I just liked holding cats. I don't think I knew like science. And, like,
right.
You know what I mean? Like,
I
was
know,
like,
of course.
You hug them and they get better, right?
Yeah. I just like to hear the noise of purring. I mean,
yeah. So I was an animal lover, but I guess because my parents were vets, I was just like, I'm going to be a vet. And then I started to like, I wanted to be like Sandra Bullock in the 90s. Like I loved attention. I'm one of 5 kids. And I liked making people laugh. I would quote like Dana Carvey and Mike Myers. I loved Paula Poundstone. I would
my God, she's so good.
Sinbad, Paula Poundstone, George Carlin. I mean, I would just like literally recite their stand-up. And so when my high school friends kind of started to convince me that it was something I could do. But in my mind, I was like, when I'm 25, I'll do it. And it wasn't until like really reading about Margaret Cho. She started at 15. Dave Chappelle started at 14.
So
I think
crazy.
Chris Rock started at 17. So I started reading biographies because this is before podcasts, but I started to see that people did it young. And that's what kind of helped guide me to like do it more. But I remember being 15, reading, like I was already writing jokes. I was reading biographies.
Yeah.
And I remember telling my parents because they were already starting to like vet me in a way. Like, you know, when you're a veterinarian and you're going to have to get your grades up in science if you're going to become a veterinarian. And I was like, my brain was already like, I'm not becoming a vet. That sounds hard. Like, I was like,
I don't
sound
hard.
And it's funny because I do like science, but I like on a very like I like reading Science Times in the New York Times. I'm not like with a beaker in my room.
Yeah. You don't want to like create fake smoke.
Yeah, and I just blood still is like not my friend. And so it's like I remember telling them. My mom didn't really have a reaction. My mom never has pressured me. I think my dad still to this day thinks I might turn it around. I think he's still holding up hope. But this is what I'll say about them. They didn't have much of a reaction. my dad was like, well, if this is what you want to do, you need to talk to people that have done it. Like, you know, you have to see the people that have done it. And and so my dad started buying me biographies about comedians. NPR, one of the coolest things my dad did is NPR had would interview comedians. They would interview, you know, Colin Quinn. They would interview Patton Oswalt. They would interview Robin Williams. And I guess they came out with a compilation CD of all the comedians they interviewed.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, he gave it to me when I was like 18. And what's funny about it, the only people I didn't recognize were it was right after 9/11 because I started 2002. So it was maybe 6 months to a year after 9/11, and they interviewed Maz Jobrani and Ahmed. And I had never heard of them, and they were so funny in this interview, so I wrote to both of them. And Maz got back to me, and he's like, actually, I'm based in LA, but I'm here. You know, I'm happy to answer your questions if you want to get coffee. So and he's like, can you burn that CD for me? I would love the interview. I was like, absolutely. We've been friends ever since.
Yeah,
like,
he's so great. That's
the kindest
awesome.
person.
Yeah.
But like I wrote to probably, when I was 15, I wrote to about 40, 45 comedians. And
how many wrote back?
2. Judd Apatow, and this is
I knew. Yeah, Judd always writes back. He's unbelievable.
And you know what's funny? I've met him once at the Cellar, and I haven't built up the courage to be like, you wrote to me, and I have it printed out in my room.
Oh,
because I wrote. This was when he still had his email on his website because it was before 40-Year-Old Virgin. It was like post Freaks and Geeks, like
right.
You know, we're talking about, like 2001, 2002. And so he wrote back and he's like, if you want to write, you should go to college and it's all about writing. And it was very simple and sweet, but it was like somebody got back to me. And then George Carlin called me.
What?
And yeah, so he called me when I was 15 and basically very basic advice, like, you know, you got to write every day and it's about, you know, getting up on stage. And then he's like, you can write to me anytime, because he basically had an office and I had written a letter to his office. And my dad told me when I write to people, it should be a business email. So it was my name, my address, my phone number, my email. And all my letters said was like, hey, I'm 15. I want to get into stand-up. You know, do you have any advice? Like, I was just kind of like, I'm lost, but I want to do this.
That's incredible. I love this story.
You know what? So he ended up, I wrote to him a couple of times. He gave me free tickets to see him in New Brunswick.
Wow.
He's now sent me 2, you know, when he was alive, he sent me 2 signed books. I had coffee with him when I was 19. He was coming in between gigs and he sat down, because my big thing then, I was 19, I was like, how do you organize like a longer set and how do you build? He took out his computer and showed me how he builds a set and how he memorizes stuff.
This is crazy.
So the Guardian wrote a piece on it maybe 5 years ago. And I remember like my first TV credit was Live at Gotham. I was 22 years old. And when I was 18, I was featured in the New Yorker, and I talked about the fact that he was very kind to me, and I sent him a copy of it, and he called to be like, this is such a beautiful article. Just like truly like a grandpa. Like,
yeah,
just
what a
great
great person. I mean, and then the time to meet you. I mean, seriously, that is so rare.
And that's what I've always said is like, he clearly influenced me as a comedian, and I would like to think that I'm like a philosophical comic and somebody that kind of thinks ideas, but where he really had large impact is how he treats others. And, you know, I've met his daughter a couple of times, and I've met other comics that have had similar interactions with him. But I watched, actually, the other thing I want to talk to Judd about is I watched his documentary on Gary Shandling.
Yeah.
And there's a part in that documentary where Gary meets George, and George gives Gary a bunch of notes on his set. And this is in the 70s. I was like, oh, he's always been George. Like there's just this part of me that's like, what a beautiful human that in many ways was misunderstood because he cursed and he was aggressive and, you know, he would punch you in the face with his ideas, but his heart was, he was just and like to be as famous, legendary, and as polarizing as he was, he seemed to always just be a people person and just be a thoughtful person.
Yeah, there's a lot of people like that. Other people would be surprised.
I consider you that person, Jessica.
Yeah.
Like, I've always, like Maz Jobrani is that person. I think you're that person. I think George is that person. I've met so many people that whether you like their stand-up or not, whether you understand or relate to their ideas, their heart is for people, and they I think it's about empathy and about like, cause like, even when I think about how I met you, you know, I think part of you is like, here's a young girl, a young comic that doesn't know what she's doing, that's trying her best. And I think even though you might have started later, isn't that what we're all doing? We're all just kind of like flopping around trying to figure it out, so that when you can be even 5% of guidance to somebody, I don't think people really realize that impact. Like, because of George, and I'm dyslexic, so it's really hard for me to write people back, and we get inundated with messages. Now when I have a young comic ask me for advice, I send them little voice messages. I'm like,
That's
hey,
nice.
I'm not, and to me, it's like, it takes 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It makes a huge impact on them. And I always say, just like what George said, which is like, things have changed. I'm not going to pretend I know what, even now I feel like how I started is so different from comics starting today. It's been 18 years. And, I did bringer shows. I did open mics. I barked for years. I used to hand out flyers for years.
Right. So that means to people listening that because a lot of people wouldn't know what that means, but it's called barking, and we would hand out flyers and ask people to come to the show. And if you did that, you would get stage time. So I did it in Times Square for 3 years. I did it from 16 to 19. And wow,
in the winter,
Liz, that's like, what a time to be doing that. 16 to 19.
But basically what you were saying about my parents, so my dad was really encouraging. And there's two things that I find fascinating. My parents said I couldn't go to the city without a parent, because I was 16 years old. So I had to, either they had to come or a friend's parent had to come. And I didn't want my parents to see my stand-up. So think about it this way. My parents have 5 kids. They're working crazy hours. And my dad would come on the train. I wouldn't let him see my stand-up. He would go sit and read a book in Starbucks for 2 hours. And then he would get back on the train. And sometimes he'd be like, how'd it go? And I'd be like, it was awesome. And sometimes I'd be like, I don't want to talk about it. And I would be a grumpy teenager. And he just spent like 3 to 4 hours with me, and I'm being a dick. And I was so mad at them at that age because of a lot of things. But when I look back at it, I was 16. I'm tinier. I was even tinier then. And it's a year after 9/11. I'm going to New York City. My parents still kind of see New York City like 1975 New York City.
Yeah, of course, like it is now.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, exactly.
Like
they're seeing it. They didn't see. They saw a crystal ball. They're they'll come back around.
Yeah.
But they still let me go. They just had this parameter. But I was just like, God, my parents are so overbearing. And I'm a 16-year-old
we all
girl.
think like that when we're teenagers. It's so funny. Why am I not allowed to travel across the world by myself? I'm 14.
Yeah, exactly.
It's ridiculous.
The other cool thing my dad did that I have a lot of respect for, I got grounded. I got grounded a couple of times. I had a lot of responsibility as a kid. I had to watch my brothers and take care of them. But they always kind of like the rule was when I was a teenager is I had to watch my brothers most days after school and on the weekends. And I could pick one day that I could like sleep over a friend's house or go do stand up or whatever. So I got grounded. I think I was 17 years old. And it was like really bad, like, no TV, no seeing your friends. You come home right after school. All you do is you help your mother kind of thing. And I remember going into my dad's room and I was like, I will take a longer punishment if I can still do stand up. I was like, I will go do my show. I will call you and tell you when I'm there. I'll come home right away. I was like, but you can't take this away from me. I go, this isn't fair. You're trying to take away my future when it's not TV to me. I really pitched this thing where I was just like, I will, whatever you take away, I respect it and I'll do it longer if you need to, but you can't take away stand up. Yeah. And my dad was like, okay. And the parameters were, I had to tell him when I had my show, I had to say when I was there, I had to say when I was on the train, and I came home and I had to help out my mom.
That's so amazing. Thank you so much to all of my Patreon members for supporting the podcast.
All right, hold up. Could you take a little off the P's? You're hitting them too hard. Not action.
Thank you so much to all of my Patreon members for supporting the podcast.
Hold on. Now you're whispering Patreon. Is there a reason you're whispering?
Well, you said to take the
somewhere in the middle.
Okay.
You ready? Action.
Thank you so much to all of my Patreon members.
Now you got to pause.
For those of you who don't know, Patreon members, is that okay?
It was perfect. Why'd you stop?
Oh, okay. Patreon members.
Cut. Let's go back to the beginning.
Thank you
and action.
Thank you so much to all my Patreon members for supporting the podcast. For those of you who don't know, Patreon members get early access to the podcast ad-free episodes, and access to monthly live streams where we talk more about...
All right, let's take it back to the beginning. That was perfect. Do it exactly
I
like
just
that.
did it well, though,
Except
but why are you
finish it this
starting
time.
over? Thank you so much to all of my patron...
Cut. Why are you screaming?
Because I'm just trying to get through this.
Action.
Thank you so much to all of my...
Action.
Thank you so much to all of my Patreon members. For those of you who don't know, Patreon members get early access to the podcast.
Perfect. Keep going.
There's so many P's.
Keep going. Keep going.
Ad-free episodes.
You could cut this out, right?
For those of you who don't know, Patreon members get early access to the podcast, ad-free episodes, and access to monthly live streams where we talk more about being relatively sane.
Hold up. Did we agree on monthly live streams?
Yes, you told me I should do them because it'll get more members.
I don't know how to do a monthly live stream.
Don't you just talk in your phone?
We'll figure it out. Come on, let's get through this. We have to go. We should speed this up.
All right. Thank you so much to all my Patreon members for supporting this podcast. For those of you who don't know, Patreon members get early access to the podcast, ad-free episodes, and access to monthly live streams. We don't know what that is, but whatever, where we talk about being relatively sane. If you want to join our fantastic community that is so corny, go to patreon.com/Jessica Kirson. That's patreon.com/Jessica Kirson. That's Patreon.
I think you said patriot.com.
Go to patreon.com/Jessica Kirson. That's patreon.com/Jessica Kirson. Patreon.com/Jessica Kirson. Thanks again.
And cut. That's a wrap.
Ugh. So what is your dream? Like, what would be your, we've never talked, you and I have never talked about this, but what's your dream gig? Like, do you have a dream gig in this business?
Yeah, I mean, it's changed. I think it's a combination of like Jim Gaffigan and Tina Fey. Like, yeah. I want to tour the world and have people come see my stand up and be able to make specials and just have that unrestricted comedic ability to just have my ideas and tell it to people that enjoy them. And I'm doing it on a very baby level. But the kind of Tina Fey idea is I have all these scripts, like I have all these unique TV show ideas that I think are original, that I'm passionate about. It's a lot of dark comedy. It's a lot of mixing like my history with mental illness and my history with living next to a cat clinic and my parents being vets. Like I now have 2 out of 3 scripts that deal with a woman that works in a cat clinic. You know what I mean? Like a part of me is
like that, a cat clinic. I love it.
I think it's a unique setting. And then of course we write about what we know. And I grew up with 2 veterinarian parents and I lived next to a cat clinic half my life. I have a lot of stories. And so I like that as a unique background. And then of course, everything's really dark, a lot about like death and murder and mental illness. And like, I like sitting, I think we both like it. I like sitting in the darkness.
Yeah, I do too. I love dark comedies. It's my favorite, like dramedy is my favorite kind of stuff.
You ever watch Little Miss Sunshine?
No. I heard it's good. Yeah.
It's a must watch. So it came out, I think probably like 15 years ago, but I don't want to give too much away, but it's about a family that their girl is in a beauty pageant, like their little daughter's in a beauty pageant. And she's like, for some reason she got into like the biggest one. She was doing these little baby ones and now she's in the big one, but they don't have money. Like they're all like strapping by, but it's such a big deal for them to go. So they literally like get a truck, take the whole family. They're driving cross country just so their little girl can live this dream. And it's fucking crazy and chaos and meltdowns. And it just felt so relatable as a family of 5 that just like everybody is having a disaster every day.
Is it all boys and you?
No, it's 3 girls. So I have an older sister, a younger sister, and 2 younger brothers.
Wow. Oh my God. So you're the second oldest.
Yeah. So I'm really I'm pretty close with all my siblings, but like, I'm sure you've met my little sister, my little brother, because I bring them around all the time. But my little sister, my little brother, so M is smack dab in the middle, and then Sammy's right after her. We're really close. We shared a room for years. I mean, I shared a crib. I had a bunk bed with Emily, and then there was a crib in my room, and that was most of my life. It wasn't until I was 13 that I had my own room. And then we would always have sleepovers. That was my favorite part, is that even though I had my own room, I had the biggest room. That was a compromise. If I lived with my parents had a 2-bedroom that they converted into like a 4-bedroom.
Oh my God.
Like,
what part of Jersey?
Huh?
What part of Jersey?
Princeton and right outside of
Right.
Princeton.
Okay.
Like,
Okay. So that's hard. I've been through it. I mean,
yeah.
it's,
I'm sure. How many kids do you have now?
I have 46 kids.
That's what I thought.
I have 4 and 3 live with me, and my oldest lives near me with my ex.
Yeah. So it's like,
but Zoe's 14. My old, like, it's crazy.
I know. I love those videos.
Oh
I
God,
mean,
she is.
She's
She's heaven.
I also love the dynamic you have with your daughter, where like it just like they feel like staged TikToks, but I know just being around you that I know you guys are just singing and being silly and you're making voices. Like I would love to.
Oh, totally. They're crazy.
I would love to I'm very curious to see who your daughter is at 25, because in my mind, she's going to be this gregarious, kind, silly woman that like people are going to be like, almost like when you see a movie and you're just like, how does this pixie little girl turn out like this? And then they meet you and they're like, oh, I see it now.
Yeah, that's so sweet. I just got emotional when you were talking because
I mean, you can see it through a screen.
Yeah.
What a just like a beautiful flower child you've created.
Right. Zoe is the oldest, is a hippie flower child. She is so political. I mean, she's way more political than I am. She's 14 and
next
she's
generation.
Right. These posts are like very intense. Which I'm proud of her. I'm like, I mean, she's gorgeous and so talented with singing and acting, but I'm like, honestly, the biggest thing for me is that she's kind and empathetic.
Yeah.
Like she's such a good person and such a hippie and innocent. She's so innocent. But yeah, it's interesting having girls. I mean, do you want kids? Do you think, or you don't know?
I don't know.
Don't do it.
I mean,
it's
hard. It's hard as somebody that spent half their life taking care of kids.
Yes. Right. Everything you're saying. It's a whole.
It's like, I feel like the time to have had a kid was 3 months ago.
Oh God, I know.
Because my biggest fear, and because your wife actually bared your kids.
So both did. So my ex had Zoe, and then my current wife had the 3.
Yeah, and not to I don't want to dismiss this, and please forgive me, but like I think my biggest fear is the time off I would have to take to physically take care of the child.
Listen, I've talked to Rachel Feinstein, to Bonnie McFarlane, to a lot of people about that. I've had it very easy. I had the best situation you can have.
I don't want to say that, but like
I do. I didn't have to physically go on stage pregnant. You know, this business is, I think it's much better now, but I remember years ago, like when Judy Gold went on pregnant and Karen Bergreen, and people were like, oh, that's weird. Like it was weird to see a stand-up
people
comedian.
Judge people that exercise, and they're like, everybody says it's fine, so fucking shut your mouth.
I can't.
And let me do what I want.
People are out of their minds.
Well, it's also people half the time that have never experienced it, have never been pregnant, have never done anything, telling you shouldn't you shouldn't be going for a jog, and you shouldn't be on stage with your baby.
I know, please. These rules, when people are like, would say to Danielle, like, don't eat tuna, she's like, my mother did heroin. She didn't really. She didn't really, but I mean, my mom smoked and drank when she had. I mean, they all did shit. Like you're as careful as you can be, but yeah.
Everybody's doing the best they can, and I think I have a deep amount of fear, and in some ways, I think the pandemic has actually been helpful for all of us. I think we all have a fear of stopping and slowing down, and what that means for us emotionally and comedically, and. You know, I told my mom, I like cried on the phone. I was like, I am worried about my mental health, like more than my financial well-being. I'm worried.
I know.
I've never known who I am without stand-up. I've been doing it since I was a teenager. What if I can't handle my thoughts? What if I can't handle all this time on my hands? What if I can't handle what it means? I know a lot of my path is a work addiction, and we all do this in some ways to both the validation, but also the numbing aspect of it. And
Absolutely.
Who am I if I'm not getting this adrenaline every night? And I really worried, and I feel fortunate, and I've had ups and downs. I think everybody has, regardless of what you do. But I feel a little more confident now going forward that I can take more than a week or 2 off and I'll be okay, that I'll bounce back, that I'll still be funny, that I'll still love myself, that I'll still feel like I have value. Because I think there's a lot of fear. I think there's a lot of fear with any time off. And then of course, as a woman, you have a lot of fear that once you have a kid, people won't give you opportunities. People make assumptions for you. Well, she's busy.
They do. They do. I
you.
feel like it even happens with me. And I'm like, no, I'm around. I'll work it out. I can do it.
Yeah, I'll tell you if I can't make it work. Don't make assumptions about me. Like, I think, or also like, people don't like the way you might adapt. You know what I mean? So like, I thought it was really fascinating. Not to say that Maz had a kid, but I remember Maz was touring in New York, and he was, this was years ago. I was doing a web series, and he was doing a voiceover for it. And it was his wife and his baby and a nanny. And like, you know what I mean? So it was like, it's a crew, and it clearly like costs a lot of money to have that crew, but he's like, I'm going to make it work. I want to spend time with my family. I just had a child. I want to be around my child. And then I also have to do shows, and we're going to figure out a way to make this work. And so I think as I get older, whatever I end up deciding, I have to be confident. My dad actually gave me really great advice years ago, which he goes, when you need the money, you find the money. Because he had 5 kids, and my parents didn't grow up with any money, and he started his own business, again, with, debt from college. And he goes, it was scary, but you learn that when you need the money, you find the money. Okay, Greg needs a nebulizer and has asthma, and he had to get this surgery. We'll find the money. It's
and
like,
it always comes. I mean, it does whatever. I mean, people do the best they can, and it always works out. And this will work out.
Yeah, I think we're going to grow from it. I think every comic, I think, like I said, you're going to learn a lot about yourself. And I think we'll come out of it different comedians in a lot of ways. Like, because the other thing is, what my second fear was? Like, one's like, I might lose my mind. My other fear was, we're all write about the same shit. We all just had the same experience.
I
There's
know.
going to be no unique quarantine jokes.
That's hysterical.
But I love that my fear was like, I might lose my mind. Also, none of my jokes are going to be original, and this is the worst experience.
I've had the same things. And then I've had like, maybe I will like it too much being off. Or there's so many different thoughts that I think most of us have had. And I do think that it'll get much better. I mean, your stuff is amazing, and you're still creating and putting stuff out there. I want to talk about, of course, this is like so major. You have a special on YouTube that's free.
Yeah.
Which is like, you guys, you don't have to, like, it's completely free. You just go to YouTube and watch Liz's special. So where can they find, like, how can they find your special and your other stuff that you're doing?
Yeah, so honestly, YouTube /Liz Miele. It has my first hour that I recorded 6 years ago. I put the video up on there, so that's on there for free. And then my third hour, which I filmed in New York in November, and I released it in May, and that's completely free. And then I have an album in between those that you can like stream or buy. It's whatever. So that's 3 hours. I feel like I'm doing like an infomercial.
No, but this is a lot. This is a lot of material. Like,
I think this is the first year that I can really look back and be like, oh, I've really created something.
Yeah.
And pretty quickly, because I don't like I did an album, me and Carmen like split an hour or split a long show. We were both filming an hour to do, or recording an hour. This was like 8 years ago, I think. And it got ruined. Like there was like issues with the audio, and I tried again and it got ruined a second time.
That is horrible.
It was horrible. It was like truly like, I was
God.
already frustrated, and then to have something that was out of my control ruin it. And it was so demoralizing and so upsetting that I was just like, fuck it. I'm going to throw away all my material. I'm going to write a full new hour. And when that hour is ready, I'm going to record my album. And I think except for 2 jokes, that first hour from 6 years ago I wrote it in about a year and a half. And it actually was one of the best things to happen to me mentally, because it made me realize how quickly I can write.
Yeah.
And how good it feels when all your material is the version of you in that moment. As opposed to, sometimes we have a joke that we love and we keep it for 6 years, but it does well, but it's not really a part of us anymore.
Yeah.
And it taught me to feel a connection to my jokes and to write in a way where it still feels like this version of me.
Mm-hmm.
So now this one took a little bit longer because I had to film it and find money and blah, blah, blah. But now
it looks great.
2 to 2.5 years, I have a new hour.
Oh, that's so good. It's so, Liz, you work so hard. You're so committed to this. You're such a brilliant writer. You have it all. You're fun, you're sweet, you're easy to be around. Because some people are like, and plus you're a giver. I say this, people have heard me say this on the podcast, but I do believe that comics are either givers or takers. And I think there's both. I think there's actually an equal amount of both.
Yeah, I agree.
And I only laugh at the givers. Like I don't I don't laugh at these people on stage that it's about them. Like they're taking the energy. Like you're really putting energy out there to help people and make them laugh. And I love that about what you do.
Have you ever read the book Give and Take?
No.
It's honestly, there's a few kind of those self-helpy books that that have actually had an influence on me. And I read this one probably about 8 years ago when I needed it, because my parents are good people. My parents are givers, but I was that's how I was raised and I like being.
Yeah.
But you do have people take advantage of you. You have people that take even more than you're capable of giving.
Yeah.
And it starts to mess with you. And I was really at a place where I was like, maybe being a good person isn't helpful to me, and maybe I need to. And so I read this book called Give and Take, and the thesis of it is that there's givers, there's takers, and there's matchers. And it's pretty self-explanatory. Give more than you take, take more than you give, and then tit for tat. You give me this, I'll give you that. And they go, who do you think is the most successful? Or they go, who do you think is the least successful? And it's givers. Givers are the least successful. And then they go, well, who do you think is the most successful? It's givers. Givers are also the most successful. And the whole logic is that givers that aren't successful are either in the beginning of their give game and they haven't built up give collateral, or they keep being taken advantage of by takers. And then the ones that are the most successful have built collateral over years, and they've learned how to navigate and not be taken advantage of. And it was it literally was a book that taught me how to be a happier, healthier giver.
Yeah.
And it was so good for and it has so many great examples. One of them is actually, one of the examples they give is a writer from The Simpsons from years ago. Just a guy, like basically the person that writes the first draft of script gets the credit. So any kind of punching up afterwards, those people don't get credit. You wrote the first draft, even if it was garbage, you get the credit. And there's people that will fight for extra credit.
Yeah.
So he was this writer at The Simpsons, and I should know his name because it was a really beautiful story. He punched up he never got credit. He punched up he was known as literally the funniest, kindest person on The Simpsons, never got any credit. And then years later, like, people were so indebted to him and were so blown away by his kindness that it like really took his writing to the next.
I completely believe that.
I do
Absolutely,
too. And
especially in this business. Yeah.
I do. And I feel like I said earlier, it takes me 5 minutes to give a young comic encouragement that might be like how George treated me.
It's huge.
I mean, he still has an effect on my life 18 years later. So I think I have learned to say no, which I think boundaries are really important.
Yes.
And I have to be confident about when I say no and why I say no. And I have to be okay with saying no. And that's also something I've had to learn. But I've also had to think about what's the best way for me to say yes and to give what I think is not only the right thing to do, but also doesn't hinder me growing.
Yes.
And doesn't, the same way that, you're supposed to put your mask on before you put a kid's mask on if they need air on a plane. I had a book had to teach me how to do that better. And it's work. I mean, that's the other thing that makes me upset is I think I am a natural giver, but over time it's actually taken work to be a nice person.
I know.
And I do get and when people don't acknowledge that, and you do have somebody that's constantly taking and not acknowledging, like, hey, like I have a lot of people that come to me for international credits, like, hey, you did this club in this country and this and this and this, and I go, absolutely, somebody helped me get there, I would love to help you. But then when there's no thank you,
I know it's very hard. I deal with the same thing.
Or the only time these people reach out is when they want something, and you're like, hey man, like that email took me 5 years to get.
There's a lot of those. There's a lot of those now. There's a lot of new comics that have no humility, nothing. They have they don't, like, I always say, when I was around Margaret Cho, when I was starting, or Sandra Bernhardt, even Judy Gold or Wendy Liebman, I was like a geisha girl. I was like, hi, can I get you anything? Like, I was so just blown away, and they were idols to me and mentors, and I was very respectful. And now it's not the same. It's people expect help a lot that are just starting out.
Yeah, and it's funny. I feel there's a lot of benefit to social media, and I very much have a career because of social media. But the access to us, both from fans and from younger comics, I don't think they understand how inundated you get, how exhausting it can be. And also, like I said, these contacts, I'm happy to give out free information, but I'm not your teacher. Like you didn't sign up for my class.
Right.
Like I'm not obligated to answer every question you've had at any time of day because you like what I do.
It's the same thing. I go through the same thing every day, and I can't. I literally don't have the time to get back to. I don't have the time.
Yeah.
It's
and that's where like therapy and like reading about boundaries and stuff, I still struggle with that. Like it is so painful for me to say no.
A lot of women, by the way, obviously, and men, but it's just very common for women to go, yes, sure, okay, yeah, I'll take care of you, sure.
And then you're moving somebody, you don't even know their last name.
That's hilarious.
I'm like, why am I moving you?
You're moving somebody.
Truly, I'm like holding a dresser and I might die because it's two tiny women with a dresser. And I'm like, what am I doing?
You're like, who are you? Whose dresser is that? I know. I'm so proud of you. You're doing amazing. Again, they can reach you at it's youtube.com/ Is that what you say? Backslash?
Yeah. /
Whatever. I know it's that /
Miele.
You guys know what it is. Liz Miele. And you have a podcast too, right?
Yeah, I have a podcast with Maria Shahada. It's called Two Non-Doctors. We just talk about health and body and all this stuff with almost no accuracy. And
it's a great name. I love it.
I mean, after every episode, we go, hey, we're morons. Make sure you see a real doctor. We're like, we don't know legality if that's enough, but we just want you to know we're idiots. And it's been really fun. We just got a Patreon. He's like he wrote like really nice stuff in the Patreon. He goes, signed 2 real doctors. He goes, me and my wife are doctors. And we're like, that was our dream.
Oh, that's
for real
so
doctors
funny.
To listen. And then my mom comes on. My mom is a veterinarian, so she's our real doctor. And my mom will come on. And I would say my favorite episode, my mom started doing competitive powerlifting in her 60s.
Wow.
It's like pretty crazy. Like she like reversed like early signs of osteoporosis, and my mom has like guns now. And she lifted 303 pounds, I think last year, and broke like state records for her age group and her weight class.
Good for her.
So we like had her on talking about CrossFit and powerlifting and like diets she's done. My mom's done every diet you can think of since the 70s. And she's so funny, and she's just very cute. Like, I can't tell you how many people are just like, I come for Dr. Miele. Like
I have to hear it. Well, let's all listen to. I can't wait. I love it. I love it. Yeah. Check out Liz's special. Support her. Support comics right now. That's what you can do is go on, check it out. Subscribe, listen to all her stuff, watch her videos. You're great on Twitter, Instagram, all of it. And so I'm just proud, and I'm so grateful to be your friend. And
I'm grateful to be your friend.
And
you started out as a mentor.
Oh, and then I get to see love that. Well, you inspire me because you work so hard and you write a lot, and it's inspiring. I mean it. Yeah.
I appreciate it.
All
Thanks
right.
for having me.
Thank you so much, Liz.